All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Colette Cox, and I am the, I almost said vice principal, vice president of the Kanab Area Chamber of Commerce. You can tell I've worked in education too long. And we're glad that you could join us today for a Q&A this afternoon with Commissioner Chamberlain. I know that a lot of you have had some lingering questions about Prop 10. And I think that we realized as the chamber was rolling out information, we've had Brent come and talk a few times, or excuse me, Commissioner Chamberlain come and talk a few times at our chamber meetings, that this is a complex issue, and it's a complex issue for business owners, and it's a complex issue for the residents of King County and for our voting base. And so I'm happy that you all are here today to answer questions or ask questions and help get your questions answered from Commissioner Chamberlain. And it looks like Rob Van Dyke is our county attorney is also joining us now. So I wanted to be pretty informal on this call. However, I do have a couple requests that everybody keep their questions and their comments to be very civil. We're here for information. It's not a debate, but we do want to get down to some of the finer points of the issue of Prop 10. So with that being said, I'll just put that request out to each of you. Please, if you can, go ahead and turn on your cameras, and you can either raise your hand. There's a little button that allows you to raise your hand here in Zoom, or if you have a question, go ahead and find the chat, and I will call on you just so we don't have multiple people trying to talk at the same time. So if you have a question, you can just put question, and then I'll call on you. You can unmute and ask the question. Does that sound good? All right, here we go. Who would like to start? Or you can really raise your hand if you're on camera, then I can see you raising your hand. So
I could start. Just I don't know what everybody's base is as far as information. There's a lot of misinformation out there. It might be easier just to answer questions and try to clarify things, but if there's any, I mean, I can spend as much time as we have. I have a kind of a drop dead thing at 5 o'clock, so we've got till 5 to get through this. So anybody have any questions, any clarification on anything, or do you want me to ramble until somebody thinks of something? Go ahead, Walt. Just one comment, Walt. You're muted, first of all, and secondly.
Yeah, I just unmuted. I tend to. All right, I don't want to replay the last meeting where you might talk. It seems like every time I asked a question you answered, I had 10 more questions. But you make this comment, and there's several people who said there's a lot of misinformation. You know, Colette and I were talking and said there's misinformation out there. So can you spend 5 minutes or so and just summarize what you believe to be the misinformation?
So there's a number of different things. One of those is the taxes, obviously. How is this going to be paid for? And again, we're talking about Proposition 10, the potential of creating a shuttle agency or authority. The money for this will either come from the federal government, if it's allocated that way. If it is, that's great. If not, we have a good deal of support within the state, the legislature, the governor's office, GOED, Office of Tourism, and we're confident that we would get the money from the state if it didn't come from the federal, but they expect us to go to the feds first. That's for the initial capital. And so it will not cost taxpayers anything for that. It currently has not cost taxpayers anything. However, we have purchased the first shuttle. County share of that was about $117,000. People look at that and say, well, you could have bought a gas shuttle a lot cheaper. The problem is this isn't a standard shuttle. It has to be less than 93.5 inches wide. So this is a special shuttle to begin with. So a gas shuttle would have cost less, but not nearly that much less. And the other thing is funding is not available out there to just go buy gas shuttles and run them in and out, where it was available for alternative energy sources like hydrogen, electric. Could have done a natural gas, but it has to be piped in or trucked in. Could have done propane, but it has to be trucked in. So the most economical, easiest to operate was electric. So that's why we went that direction, get more money for it. But that has not cost taxpayers. The initial purchase of this, the initial capital will not cost taxpayers. Either it comes from the feds or the state, or it doesn't happen at all. Creating the agency does not create an obligation to fund anything. It just allows the agency something to be in place so that money can be received into the agency rather than King County itself. But it could go either way. As far as operational costs, the operational cost, again, this area, so Kanab is included in this because it was advantageous to have a gateway community to operate as a sort of a base. It didn't have to. It could have just been created up there in the area, the region, East Zion region. It didn't include the other communities because we felt like we could, with the initial capital and startup, we could provide service in and out of Kanab, but we can't start to provide service to Bigwater and Orderville and Glendale and every place throughout the county initially. So we start with what we can service to begin with, and then other communities can be annexed very easily if they want to have that. There would have to be, some means that we'd have to be able to figure out how to pay for it is all. But initially, we can start it up with what we have to provide a service from Kanab and to the visitor center up on the east side and then down into the park. For operations, anything that we can't raise from the state and federal for operating costs of this will come from the RDA area that's been created up there. The way RDAs work in the state of Utah is they're considered to be redevelopment areas. And what it does is it allows the state or the county to capture revenue. The state gets all of the revenue, all tax revenue, but they get the revenue, and then a portion of that they can agree, or they return the county's portion to the county. The county has agreed with the MBA. There's been an agreement signed between the MBA and the county that 80% of the new revenue that would be generated in this area, in the RDA area, can be used for infrastructure and transportation and other needs within the RDA area. So operation will be paid for state, federal, and the RDA area. Again, not affecting anybody outside of that area. And in reality, the tax rate is exactly the same if you're in the RDA as if you're not in the RDA. It's just an allocation of how we use the money. Got a question, Colette? You're muted. Okay. I can't hear you. Still not hearing you, but it's showing that you're muted, Colette. There you go. Gotcha.
Sorry about that. So my question, to dovetail onto Walt's question, is one of the examples of the transit system that you're trying to model off of is Cache Valley. And they've been operating, what, for 20 plus years? Is that about right?
Something like that. It's been a while.
And so I know that they're, the layout is a little bit different. The people they serve are a little bit different. I'm actually from Cache Valley and have used the system up there as a student when I was a college student. But I wondered, have you talked to them about their funding sources and basically what do they do when funding dries up? Do they have alternative sources? So there's not an interruption in service and they don't have to go back to the taxpayers.
Yeah, so the difference between, as far as the structural setup of the agency or authority, it is similar to Cache County. That's where the similarities end. Cache Counties is designed to serve the residents of Cache County and the students at the university, and it services all those little communities. It is a true residential service, and so they tax residents. The residents pay a fee. This service is initially set up to be servicing tourists, and the tourists that are going to be benefited by the RDA area itself. So we can justify, we fund this thing through the federal, state, and the TIF money that's generated in the RDA area, and that's it. Now, when I said there'd have to be a source, if anybody And the only thing that is included in Kanab is going in and out of the park. Any citizen could hop on that as well as a tourist, but it will not be a shuttle service around the community of Kanab. To go to Fredonia, to go to Orderville, to service those areas requires a funding source. And so I don't know what that is today. I don't know what it would cost to include that, or to include those areas, and couldn't begin to predict it at this point in time. But at that point in time, if they wanted to join, if they wanted to be included, then with that, we'd have to work through and find some source of funding for what couldn't be allocated from state and federal monies. So, but we have a source to fund this portion, which is primarily servicing Zion National Park, that, in that area just east of the park.
And I think that that's, again, where there has been some misinformation. And I know a lot of business owners, and myself included, are very interested in that piece that will serve Fredonia, Kanab Valley, because we have a lot of employees specifically in the hospitality industry that either have transportation that's just not reliable, or maybe they don't have transportation at all. And this will take a huge burden off of them to get from point A to point B and help them get to work.
Now, there could be an alternative that would or would not fall. I mean, it could fall under this agency, but the shuttle that we just purchased is actually 50% of that is paid by the Department of Energy, Federal Department of Energy. And it is a test shuttle. It's a prototype. It's really not intended to be one of the shuttles that goes in and out of the park on a regular basis. And ultimately, it belongs to Kane County, not to the agency. And that shuttle, Kane County could decide to use that shuttle independent of the agency, perhaps a bit, for some of these other areas. But really, that one shuttle and the funding would not be in place to start running that service up through the valley without some source of funding. In Cache County, you don't have that service free of charge. There's an assessment for the for the residents.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, once this becomes a residential service, there would probably be some fees involved, but people would have a choice of deciding that that's what they want to do. They don't ever want to do it. They don't ever have to, and they don't ever have to pay taxes for it.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'm just trying to think of one that I'll just throw right out there, that I personally are not benefiting from this in any way, shape, or form. I get my amazing county salary, and that's it. And I'm being a little bit facetious there, but nonetheless, what has raised some concerns and issues on people's part is that there may be, that county money may be used to help businesses in the area, up on the East Zion area. And let me assure you, the way that works, whatever a private landowner chooses to do with their land, so long as it meets the county planning and zoning requirements and the ordinances, they have the right to do that. So whether they build something and make money off of it, that's their business. Kane County will be providing, not Kane County, but this RDA or this transportation agency will be providing transportation between Kanab and the visitor center on the east side of the park that Kane County will own, and down into the park and back to the visitor center. If somebody up there wants to ride up, wants to go up several miles to Zion Ponderosa, there'll have to be another means of doing that. It's not this shuttle. We're not providing service to other businesses or any of the businesses up there unless they contribute a fee toward it. I can't say that we wouldn't provide it if that business came to us and said, hey, we will contribute something, whatever is determined by the agency to be the appropriate fare to have you stop by our business. That could happen, but the way it is right now, and with the way this is set up, there's nothing going to any businesses up there private. It's going to the visitor center, and the bulk of the shuttles will be running in and out of the park. Walt?
Okay, I don't want to dominate or anything, so if I'm asking too many questions or taking too much time, but I like to peel the onion back and get underneath the details.
Yeah, no, it's good to have questions.
Okay, so a couple of comments. You say there's no tax dollars involved, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to address it.
I'll clarify that for you.
But then you say state and federal money, those are tax dollars. So it may not be local property taxes or local assessments or whatever, but it most definitely is tax dollars.
Yeah,
So I think
everything.
that's,
Yeah, Walt, I'll answer your question in saying if I said there's no tax dollars, I misspoke in the fact that it certainly is tax dollars. The revenue that comes from feds is tax, or some other form. The revenue that comes from the state is. The money that will go toward operating this is tax money, but it's tax money that unless you start a new business starting this year, you start a new business in the RDA area, you will not contribute in any way, shape, or form of this. If you start a new business, the normal taxes on that business, a percentage of that will be used to operate the visitor, or to construct the visitor center, and may be used to help operate this shuttle. It won't be used in the purchase.
that's the point I really,
It is tax money. It's not your tax money.
that's the point I really want to address. Yes, it is. Again, I don't want to get too much in splitting the issues, but if those lodges, businesses, hotels, whatever they are up there, were being developed anyhow, they would have a tax base, a TRT, that would be useful all across the county. By doing this special district, it's an opportunity cost. You say it's not our tax dollars, but it's taking revenue that could have been spread across the county for other projects and concentrating there. So it is benefiting those particular users. Second of all, and this one's a little bit of a sore point with me, when you say you're not helping them, the local businesses and the shuttles, because the visitor center, it's a lot cheaper for them to run a shuttle between their lodge and a local visitor center than it is to run shuttles, as Juniper found out when they tried to run shuttles down into Fredonia. So you may not be directly subsidizing them. You may not be saying you're directly supporting them, but from a business standpoint, you are definitely using tax dollars or TRT or whatever the right label you want to put on it, and they will be the primary beneficiary. So again, that may or may not be an issue, but let's put it on the table. That is what's going to happen. If they had to run shuttles into Kanab for employees, or if they had to run shuttles for their customers to pick them up or whatever, that would be a cost they would have to bear. So we are subsidizing.
So let's clarify that. You peeled probably a little bit past the actual facts. Well, it's not facts. It absolutely facts, Walt. Here's the other thing that you're not mentioning. If we run a shuttle from Kanab up to Zion into the park, and somebody that's staying in a motel in Kanab decides they want to get on the shuttle and leave their car parked in the motel parking lot, we are also benefiting that motel, are we not? It's the same benefit to that motel, every motel or restaurant in Kanab, as it is up on the east side of the park. If we expand up the valley, it would then be the same thing up there. So yeah, businesses benefit from this. This is an opportunity tax, a way to maintain or to benefit the economy, but it benefits the areas that are serviced equally. And so, to say that we're just benefiting them is not factual at all, Walt.
I'm not saying only, I'm saying predominantly. And
Well,
I've looked for routes and schedules, and I haven't seen one yet. If someone can point me to where there's a published route and schedule to understand this better, I'd be happy to look for it.
Well, first of all, the public route schedule has not been developed because we got to get an authority and agency in place and determine whether we're going to have one. Okay, why would we spend money developing a schedule from Kanab to East Zion if we're not going to have a shuttle running between Kanab and East Zion? So all of those things are things that happen after you get to the point of deciding whether you have one. And I would disagree that it benefits the people up on the east side more than it benefits the motels here. If I was a motel here, I would be marketing, you have a shuttle for whatever cost it may be to use it. If you come and stay in my motel, you don't even have to drive your car into the park. You get to go into Zion National Park and back and never start up your car. If they don't market that way, then that's their problem, but it benefits them as much as it does anybody. Clarissa, you had a question. You're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. So you said that you're not going to spend the money developing a route and schedule yet because the agency hasn't been formed. Why did you already spend the money on the vehicle, the shuttle that you do have?
Big part of that was to determine what we would be seeking funding for. The idea is will an electric shuttle work? We don't know that. The Department of Energy had enough interest in finding out whether that would work in this application to put up half the cost. And so we get the shuttle, we use it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it will work around Kanab. And I did mention that that will be owned by Kane County, that shuttle. It won't be a part of the agency unless, unless they purchase it from Kane County or something that they decided they needed it. But that shuttle will be available as a shuttle in Kane County. It'll ultimately replace one of our older shuttles and will be used around Kane County. So it's not like it's just wasted money poured down the drain. It's a very fine shuttle. It'll service the senior center or the visitor center or whatever nicely. But it happens to be something that we can test to see whether that's something we should use in the park. To try to determine what to put into the park, we need to know, does that work before we go out there and acquire the money, get the money to buy a bunch more of them.
Okay, another question. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but are there not already private shuttles in place? Why does the government of Kane County need to be involved with this? Can we not work out a deal with those businesses to have them provide that transportation?
In answer to that, there very well might be somebody. I mean, you could hire a guide to take you into the park. And if you hired a guide for some other purpose, I don't know, Walt, you've done some guiding, you'd know what the cost would be. The average person isn't going to hire a guide to drive them into the park because of the cost that's involved for a private entity to run one of these things. They don't do it now to any extent. So this is all about relieving pressure in the park. And if they're doing it, all they're doing is taking people down there, taking them on a hike or whatever and bringing them back out. They're not relieving parking congestion and pressure in the park. The people in the park, the idea is that the part of the overall package is we'll also develop trails on the east side of the park so that when the park is crowded and you can't hike the trails you want to hike, you can hop on this shuttle, come back out to the east side of the park, hike the trails we're developing on the east side of the park, which are very nice trails. We just did a ribbon cutting this morning for the first 10-mile section of the bike trails that everybody is really impressed with the quality of that. Private companies are not going to build trails, hiking trails and biking trails. We're building 40 miles of biking trails and about the similar amount, about 40 miles of hiking trails. That's part of the draw, but it all has to do with relieving pressure inside the park. That's not your concern or a private entity's concern. If I run a shuttle service taking people in, how crowded the park is not my problem. And I know Walt has expressed that he would rather see less visitors in the park than there is currently. Let me throw something out there. If you're a motel owner in Kanab, say, for example, well, let's say on a busy day in the park, you have 20,000 visitors. And that happens. If you had 10% less visitors, that would be 18,000 visitors in the park. If you're in the park, is 18 going to feel any better than 20? I don't think you'd notice the difference. But if you have a motel up here that has an annual average occupancy of like 50 or 60%, if it's 60%, which is not very much lower than most of them probably are, would you like to have that be 50% unless it's 60? That's a big difference to you. But that's not going to make a big difference to the park resident down there. What we're trying to do is something that will alleviate pressure in the park, help people have alternatives when they're in the park as it is, provide a better experience when they're going in the park. Some of you've probably heard, but in 2019, the average time that people waited in line to get through the tunnel the tunnel was open to free traffic 16 minutes out of every hour. With this visitor center that we're doing on the east side of the park, which has tremendous parking, huge parking lot, we'll get as many of the oversized vehicles off the road, park in the parking lot, and rider shuttles in and open up that tunnel to a lot more visitation. So the idea is to make the east side of the park a more visitor friendly, a better experience for the visitors, which is not going to hurt the businesses in King County. That's not private shuttle businesses concern, any part of that. They're not going to be building a visitor center. They're not going to be building a 5.5 acre parking lot. They're not going to do any of those things that helps relieve the pressure there. And by the way, this will not alleviate their ability to still run there. We're not going to do the same things that a guide service does, okay? If you want a guide service, hire one and you get a whole lot more out of it than just a shuttle ride. That's all this is to do, is provide a shuttle ride. Joseph, go ahead.
So just a couple questions. Thanks for doing this today, by the way. So one, is Zion Mountain Ranch still going to own the land that the visitor center is on, or are they donating that to the park?
They are donating it to Kane County. They will. They haven't yet because we haven't finalized an agreement, a land transfer agreement. But 16 and a half acres, valued at about $1.6 million, will be donated to Kane County with the following strings attached. We build a visitor center on it that meets the specifications we've all agreed to, and we don't turn it into a some kind of a tourist. We couldn't build a road shed on it, for example. This is all about a visitor center and supporting visitor center kinds of activities. So, but that land will be donated to the county before we do anything.
So I also saw on the thing where it was going to do a number of like spots where local businesses might be able to rent a spot by the new visitor center. How are they going to determine who gets those spots if those are created?
That's one of those false fake newses that you're hearing about.
Oh, okay.
This land will be owned by King County, and we're not going to be renting spots for anything.
Okay.
There will be the idea is to have a cafe there, and we won't own the land that the cafe will be on. Anything that King County has will be for the purposes of a visitor center, not commercial. So that would be an agreement between current landowners or future landowners and private businesses, but not King County.
And this might have been answered, sorry, as at my kid's hoop shoot, but when did the Valley get a chance of being able to add on to this vote and build? Like, so I just noticed it's not on my ballot.
Yeah, it's not. And again, the reason why is because we just don't have the means in place right now that we could see to include any area that's added onto it. You have to provide some kind of service to them. And we don't have that right now. But the idea is once the agency is up and running, it functions much like an RDA. And our attorney can jump on if he wants to, but adding the Valley to that would be a fairly simple thing. But as I said, it requires understanding how it's going to be paid for.
But when were we given the chance to add into this is what I'm wondering.
You weren't initially, because we were trying to do it from A1 gateway community to the park to get the system up and running, to get everything established and in place. If we'd have done Kanab and Orderville and Mountain and Glendale, and then there's Bigwater and there's all these different places, we'd have to be building into it services to those places, bus stops, additional shuttles. And it's a bigger reach than we wanted to do initially, or that we felt like we could do initially. But adding on is, at any point in time becomes very simple. But again, it doesn't come without some strings attached. There has to be a mechanism in place to pay for it.
So my last question. So me and my business partner own the website entity, East Zion Shuttle, East Zion Taxi. And we tried to start up a private shuttle system last year, and the Park Service refused to accept any new applications last year for any shuttles. And so we were unable to do that. We're going to try again this year, and I hope they do. But is there any way that you could put pressure on the park to where they actually accept new businesses that want to do these things, so that we can you know what I mean? So that we can actually start doing this.
Yeah, we would welcome any private business that wants to get into this space. We would welcome it. Absolutely. I don't know. There's certain influence that we may have with the park, and a lot of influence we probably don't have, but I would be more than happy to have a conversation with them and you, the three of us at the table at the same time, to see what it would take to get you the permit to do that. I mean, we would be more than supportive of your starting something.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Clarissa.
So back to Joseph's question about Valley area not being able to vote on this. I don't live in Kanab, I live in Duck Creek. Why am I able to vote and people in Valley not?
In a perfect world, we wouldn't have these little glitches, but turns out that we're not perfect. I don't know why we didn't limit it to Kanab and the RDA area only. But at any rate, it says that the way the thing was put out there, it says Kane County, unincorporated Kane County, which is what the East Zion area is, and Kanab. And so in hindsight, we probably wouldn't have included any other areas. We did. It makes no difference to Duck Creek areas that I can see one way or the other. You won't be paying for it in any way. Other than Walt's argument that any tax dollar spent anywhere is it really your tax dollar as well? And you could have that argument. I mean, it's the same thing that if we maintain a road in you know, somewhere in the county, we maintain the road, say going up through Scudampaw, guess what? You help pay for that. So we shouldn't maintain that road, right? And we shouldn't, you know, so the question is, you have to draw a line somewhere where what is for the common good. Now, you guys, Duck Creek is a perfect example of somebody who takes care of their own problems, because you've created an SSD up there that you tax yourselves to maintain your roads and a lot of things that other communities are not doing. But it also, you know, others need to do that. I mean, we have this same problem throughout the county, but the bottom line is communities always use tax dollars for the benefit of the overall community. And you could argue as a homeowner, I pay property taxes. I don't get a personal benefit from a lot of that I pay. I don't have a kid in school. Why do I pay taxes for school? Shouldn't, right? But we do. We all pay for services that we don't get, which are for the better good. This is a case where money will not come out of your pocket in any way, except that it's money that could be used for other purposes if it happens anyway. And Walt and I could argue till we're blue in the face on whether all of this had happened or not without the visitor center going in. Personally, the visitor center is the catalyst that makes a lot of it happen, but nonetheless. But anyway, that's the question. I don't know why. There's no reason why you should get to vote. You get to, I'm sorry for that.
Well, I would argue that Valley should be able to vote. In addition, I think the ballot should be resent.
Well, we could have that discussion, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, there's an election. You just do whatever you feel is appropriate for the election. I do know this, that if this doesn't pass, then the Valley won't get a chance to vote either, because there won't be a shuttle system in place to do it. So it either passes and then there's the option to include the Valley in other areas, or else there's no shuttle service, and then that's not an option down the road. But, you know.
Commissioner Chamberlain, would you like me to clarify some of the questions about the voting, right? So Prop 10 is about whether or not this district is created, this transportation district. The county only has the ability to create this type of a district in the unincorporated areas of the county. They could have drawn the lines smaller or bigger in the unincorporated areas, but the county can only do it in unincorporated areas. And so the individuals involved with the East Zion initiative thought, okay, what's the area that's the best area to start off looking at? And it was the unincorporated areas and Kanab City. And so with Kanab City, they also got with Kanab City Council and had them start the process. And so Kanab City Council voted to create one. They held the public hearings just like the county did. And so the people that are allowed to vote on the creation of the district are those people that live within the boundaries of the district. And the proposed district boundaries is the unincorporated county areas and
You're don't have a good signal there, Rob.
I think maybe Russell had a question, and then Joseph and Walt.
All right, Russell.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's always good to get more information. Quick question on the shuttle. Do you see this being something that could expand to alleviate pressure on other national parks and attractions? Or is the vision of this particular service district just East Zion?
There's really kind of two answers to that, Russell. One of them is that this has been watched. The former director of the National Park Service is very interested in this project and felt like it's something that should be replicated in other areas. Other parks have shuttle systems. Other parks have not, does not have the collaborative effort between all the different entities to build this into a community/park partnership and something that serves outside of the park. So they are very interested in it. It very well could have application in other parks. They did call this as something that the overall project is something that they would hope would be a model for other parks in the nation to follow. And it's a first in several ways, but it's, so that's one part of the question. Yes, it is on a national basis. This is being watched on a national basis as something that they feel is very, a very good thing, a very good way to deal with issues that for gateway communities around the national parks. How do you deal with, because we're not the only ones that have transportation and other issues. So they're very interested in how this works. The smaller, or the other question, maybe macro question to that is, or micro question to that is it is the intent, it is the potential down the road that this could be expanded to include transportation to Bryce Canyon, transportation to north rim of the Grand Canyon, and transportation to Lake Powell, which would be very beneficial for the local communities from a financial standpoint, because now you become a true hub to serve, 3 national parks, a national recreation area. It wouldn't be hard to include the other, Pipe Springs and stuff like that. So this could this could make Kane County, Kanab and up through the valley, a hub like no other place in the nation. There is no other place in the nation that has the opportunity for this kind of hub arrangement that we have. Okay. But again, if it doesn't pass on Tuesday, then that's not an option.
Great. So the language of all of this is open to the possibility of it eventually growing into something more.
Yeah, the vision is there that it will grow into something more, but what it requires is just establishing the authority or the agency. You create the board according to state law, and then the board determines where they want to expand and how they expand that. Okay. And again, it would come to the availability of funding and those kinds of things. But
great. And then the other question I have on that, well, kind of a separate point, is who's left holding the bag if grants and private donations don't cover the costs?
So we don't buy a shuttle. We don't buy any more than the first shuttle we have unless there's some money, some grants and money available to purchase them. Once you purchase them, they're paid for. They sit there. If we get the private and, all of the different sources we'll be looking for operating costs for the shuttle service, if we get that, then we operate. If you don't get it, then you park your shuttles out in the back and under a shade tree, and there's no cost. I mean, they sit there. So there's no incurring cost to the county residents if you can't operate the shuttle because you don't have the funding.
Oh, there you are. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Brent. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Russell. Who was next? Colette?
Joseph, and then Walt.
Okay.
So my one question, since the whole county isn't being involved in this, could it just be changed to the name, be changed to Zion Ponderosa, Zion Mountain Ranch, and Kanab City? Since that's basically everybody, most of the people that actually get to vote on it and stuff, and they're part of this initiative.
Well, so Joseph, we just heard from Clarissa up in Duck Creek, and she gets to vote on it, and every resident in Johnson Canyon, Vermilion Cliffs, up through Scudampaw, I mean, there's a lot of people outside of Orderville, for example, that do get to vote on it. And so it isn't just Zion Ponderosa and whatever, as you say, they have no more votes than you have.
But I'm just saying,
they have no more votes than Clarissa has.
I'm just saying, why are we calling it a county thing when the whole county's not involved, though, is my only concern.
I thought Rob tried to explain that. I don't know if I could do any better than Rob did, but it had to start somewhere. And again, the county, we couldn't have created it in Orderville unless Orderville wanted to be included, went in and passed a resolution in the city council.
Never asked about Orderville, was never asked to.
I know that. I understand that. And I hope you'll accept the fact that sometimes you have to start with baby steps and then you grow it. We couldn't start. We just didn't see physically how we were going to get everything in place, the funding in place to start the entire county all at the same time.
I understand that. I just feel, so right now, like there's a big, like, I guess, sour taste in the valley's mouth that our whole entire area is underrepresented when it comes to the county, and that there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of more things that people are doing in Kanab than they are in the valley. And it was getting to the point where a lot of people were finally getting over this, and this is now bringing a lot of those feelings back, to where a lot of people are just getting very upset, almost feeling like, well, even with our county motto, it's abracadabra, with just everything. I don't know. There's just a big resonance in the valley that the county doesn't care about the valley. And that's just this thing is almost like a nail in the coffin, I guess you could say, because it's basically like a lot of them just showing that, yep, that's like, and I understand that you have to start somewhere, but there's just a lot of people that feel like the county is just completely overlooking anything the valley has to say.
Yeah, I would just say this, and that is that we recognize that, you know, as the professionals that came in and said you can't market a county, you have to market a location. I do know this, that there is there is a marketing campaign starting next week that is designed, it's called the East, I can't remember what they call it, East Zion and Beyond. And the only thing it focuses on is East Zion and up through the valley. And that starts next week, that the county TRT monies is going to be paying for.
I think it's
We're
amazing.
doing those, but those would be separate from abracadabra or anything else that we do. You market a specific area, not a whole county. That's happening. I've approved it, the monies to create it back some time ago, and they've been working on it for several months, and that will be hitting. She asked me how soon we could, or ask her, and she said, how soon do you want it out? And it was as quick as you can get it, but it looked like it's going to be next week when it hits.
Which I think that's amazing. Like, that's amazing. But this whole thing, I think it's just causing a lot of sour taste in a lot of people's mouths in the valley. As when Colette posted a few things on Facebook, that was the first time that a lot of us found out that we couldn't vote on this. And it was really difficult for a lot of people.
Well, personally, obviously, I have an interest in it because I've invested a whole lot of time and energy in this. I hope that it passes so the valley has an opportunity in the future to have a shuttle service. If it doesn't pass, that probably won't be an option, or I can't see how it would be an option, but at any rate, and I'm sorry for any hard feelings that may be there, and we are working to try to improve that, like I say, with this marketing campaign that is specifically for you guys.
Thank you.
Walt, were you up next?
I think so. So a couple comments. You mentioned my name, I think 3 or 4 times. So it, of course, gave me the desire to respond a little bit. First, with Joseph's comment, and this is not something I want to take up a lot of time here. I would like to see something published either on the county website or some other response. So I understood from Rob's comments, they couldn't create something except in unincorporated areas and or those incorporated areas that had permission like Canab. That makes total sense legally. An incorporated area has its own rights. But that to me seems to be separate from the vote on whether those are created. So I don't think it's going to be easily explained here, but I would like to see something in writing, 1 page or something that says why the vote, I understand again what Rob said about it can only be created in unincorporated areas. Makes total sense to me. But the vote on county resources is different. The second comment, and the real one I want to respond to, is you said, my position on Zion is that I think visitorship should go down. And I wanted to clarify that a little bit. That is mostly true. I do think Zion is overcrowded. Just look at the pictures last year of people trying to get to Angels Landing. The people that are waiting. If you try to go, no matter how you get there, by shuttle, hiking, bicycle, it doesn't matter. If you go any place in the main Zion areas, which is where I assume the shuttle is going to mostly have their stops, every area, including on the east side, every pullout has cars that were parked, overflowing people. So the whole experience of visiting the national park is already detrimental. So when I hear you say you're alleviating the problem, I hear you say, my interpretation of what you said is you're alleviating the problem of traffic getting through the tunnel. But if you more efficiently get more people onto the trails, you've aggravated the problem that the experience is no longer what it should be because it's already overcrowded. So if we took similar resources and developed other areas of the county or other things that truly did, I'm pro tourism. I want to make sure that's clear. I don't own the restaurants anymore. I don't own that kind of stuff anymore. But I do believe in Kanab as a tourist destination. My definition is a little bit different. I think the county has gotten addicted to the TRT, and I'm afraid they're going to do things that, kill the goose that's laying the golden egg. So
let me just ask you to
one second,
focus
let me finish.
Prop 10,
Sorry.
if you would.
So I think we should continue to support tourism, but let's do things beyond the TRT. You talked about hotels. The last thing I want to see is 10 more tour buses coming in, dropping people off the hotels that then ride the shuttles to the national park and come back and then leave. Let's make it a destination with a higher quality and do things that develops the economic base. If you improve services at the airport, get SkyWest to have a flight once a day into the airport, you're going to improve tourism a lot better than the shuttle. Go ahead, Brett. Go ahead and respond.
Thanks. My response there is, Walt, is that we agree that Zion is crowded. It's very crowded. What we're talking about doing is not putting more people in the park. We're talking about providing them alternatives to the park. So there's a reason why we're building 80 miles of trails on the east side of the park and some really quality trails. The idea is to give them an alternative. It isn't to bring more people into the park, it's to bring people out of the park to the east side. You can hop on a shuttle right at the east side, ride your bike, because these shuttles will take bikes, or hike the trails on the south side of the park, or take the shuttle down into Kanab and experience what's in the area in Kanab, and then go back in and do the park tomorrow, or something like that. The idea is to give people alternatives to the park. You got to have a way to do that. That's the shuttle system is the way you make that happen. We're not trying to stuff more people into the park. We're trying to get people out of the park without actually reducing the number of visitors that come to southern Utah, southwestern Utah. And Zion is a huge driver for the number of people that come here. We want to maintain that by giving them a better experience outside of the park. Okay, it's all about outside of the park. We're not doing a darn thing to make the park experience, to get more people in the park. It's getting people out and relieving pressure in the park for the ones that are there.
Okay, then I understand your point. I fail to understand how it's going to work. If there's trails on the east side and there's parking on the east side and people are staying in Kanab and they can visit those trails, they don't need to go into the park. So again, there's something I'm missing. So I'm going to agree to disagree for now. But I understand the point. I agree with the philosophy. I do not agree with the implementation.
Okay, so the implementation involves the trails and all the other activities that are available on the east side of the park to try to relieve pressure on the park. I'm not sure, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're doing.
The shuttle.
That's what we're doing.
I don't think the shuttle is necessary.
And the shuttle is how you get them to the east side of the park. Otherwise, they, number one, are you going to go through the traffic that it takes to get to the east side because of the tunnel, not knowing what's there? Or would you hop on a shuttle to come up, just like you hop on a shuttle to go up the main canyon? Would you hop on a shuttle to come out to the east side and hike the trails on the east side? We believe that more people would be willing to do that if you've got a nice functioning shuttle service, rather than just saying, hey, we got trails here. If you want to drive your car out, good luck. So that's the intent. That's the reason we're doing it.
I understand the intent. I just don't think it's going to work.
Hopefully it works. Hopefully it works, but I guarantee you, Walt, if you don't try something, you don't ever get anywhere.
Right. So my last comment, then I'll turn it over, is I think there are better ways to spend resources that have the desired effect and have a much better general economic value to the county.
All right, thank you. I have a hard drop in 10 minutes. I have to go do something else, but let's get some more questions out there.
I had a question, Brent.
Yeah.
So as I was reading up on the issue and just kind of going back to some of the publications and information that has been posted since 2019, can you share with us all of the partners from the beginning up until now who have worked to get this project, both the East Zion initiative, with the lodge and the visitor center, and have been supportive of the shuttle system?
Yes, I'd be glad to do that. So this project started with a collaborative effort between Kane County, and it started before my time as a commissioner with Kane County, with private landowners and with Zion National Park. And then as this project was explained to others throughout the state, it quickly became a project that the state tourism director has declared the most valuable or the most important destination development site in the state of Utah. So there are others that agree with us that this could have real value in helping the tourism, helping what their strategy now is what they call the red emerald. So it isn't in volume, they are focusing on quality of experience for the tourists. So they spend more time there, in the area, experience in the area. And you do that by providing more resources. And Walt, I agree with you 100% that we ought to be doing this in as many areas as we can. We have the ability to do it in one area now, which is East Zion. Doesn't mean we should stop there. The other partners include UDOT, Utah Department of Transportation, which will be spending $10 million or so on developing on improvements to the Highway 9 for that access. So I mentioned the Utah Office of Tourism, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, which has also made a statement that this is an incredibly important, or something to the extent that this is one of the most important economic development projects that you could do. The way they look at this, GOED is the one that came out with the formula that said a job on the Wasatch Front is not the same as a job in a rural community. And it's not just Kanab, but they went through and developed a formula that said that a job in rural, for example, Kane County is worth 33 jobs. Yeah, it was more than, anyway, something like, it was more than 33, but in some counties it might be worth 33 jobs on the Wasatch Front, because what it does to help develop the community. And so the jobs that are projected for this is the equivalent of something like 30,000 jobs on the Wasatch Front, the jobs that could be created by the efforts that are going on the East Zion site. Now, and they included development up through the valley. They included, this came from Kempsey Gardner, it included the development that is expected to occur up through the valley. And then let's see, the other partners, it includes the Zion Forever, which is the 501c3 foundation that supports the national parks in the area. They support Zion, Pipe Spring, Cedar Breaks, I think that's it. So they are a 501c3. They are a big supporter of this, a big help on this. There is a partnership that has come together that is called the Zion Regional Recreation, I forget all the acronyms. I sit on the steering committee, I should know that. I've been asked to participate in that. At any rate, they are considering this to be a key piece to how do we diversify visitors around the area, around the entire area. How do we spread them out? How do we prioritize what is our pick on what area we should be sending visitors to? Those kinds of things. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple because I'm just talking off the top of my head, but Colette, in answer to your question, every single one of these other entities are looking at this and they're asking you present it to them, and their question is why wouldn't you create, build this visitor center, create these trails, and establish this transportation system? And every one of them says, why wouldn't you do that? And so we're not the only ones that have dreamed up this, we dreamed up this pipe dream, working collaboratively with all these entities. But I guarantee you there's a lot of people in the state that think this is a really great idea, and they certainly hope it comes to fruition.
I have one last question that I think hasn't been brought up yet in this session that hopefully can round out our meeting today. But I found a lot of good gems about the project in that Kempsey Gardner Foundation research study that was published. You can find it online. I'll try and post it on the chamber website, and it's really exciting. It talks about, the potential creation of 450 jobs, 30 million annually being brought into our economy, 4.4 million in taxes being brought in. However, the big question after that is housing. And there's been talk about that part of this tax money that will be collected will go towards housing. Can you share a bit about that? Because we all know that we have some issues with housing and with staffing shortages at this time.
Yeah, this gets back to the idea that tax money can be used for the betterment of all. When we created the RDA and set up this formula, the agreement between the MBA, the county MBA, which is the Municipal Building Authority, and Kane County, to use 80% of that money toward this, toward infrastructure and et cetera in that area. By state law, 10% of that has to go for affordable housing. Now, it has to be within the area of the RDA, but in the case of housing, because workers could live in Kanab or Orderville or wherever and travel to the area, that is considered acceptable. So it will create millions of dollars over the next 20 years that has to, by state law, has to be spent on affordable housing in Kane County. And we've never had anything before to do anything with to help that. This could be a big aid. And, arguably it could be used anywhere within the county that you can justify needing some affordable housing. How that works, we don't know yet. We've looked into it. We don't have a mechanism in place. We looked at creating a housing authority. Turns out those are falling out of favor pretty quickly. So there has to be other ways to do that. And I'd be real interested in hearing from people from this group. We're looking at creating a committee, a citizens committee initially, to provide input and suggestions on how do we do this? How do we go forward with this money? And so if there's those out there listening that would like to participate in some way on this, get a hold of me and we'll try to get something together soon. It's a real issue. Affordable housing is a real issue in Kane County, and not just Kane County. I mean, it's throughout everywhere, I think, but it's a real issue here. And anyway, but we will be working on that as a result of this. And with the RDA, it gives us the opportunity of having some resources to do that with.
Well, thank you, Brent. We really appreciate you answering all of these tough questions today. It's a complex issue. We could talk for probably another hour, but I really appreciate you joining us today at the request of the Chamber of Commerce to help add some additional clarification. And also for those of you who joined late and couldn't listen in on the beginning of this call, I will post the recording on the Chamber's Facebook page shortly. And I will also find and get that link to the Kim C. Gardner study and post that on the Chamber's Facebook page. So again, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Brent, for taking the time, and everybody get out and vote.
I think Josh posted the link for it if you're looking for it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Josh.
And thanks, Brent.
Thanks. We'll see you. Everybody take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.